Welcome to Ishmael Interactive CX Pod. Today we have another great guest in our speaker series, Erika Hall, author and co-founder of Mule Design. Erika, why don't you give us a little bit of information about yourself? Before we get to that, I'm going to remind everybody to go to ishmaelinteractive.com and YouTube to like and subscribe for more guests such as this. Erika, tell us why you're here and a little bit about what work you're doing.
Um, let's see, a little bit. I think, especially recently, I've been working a lot on, let's call it practice development for designers and design researchers.
Practice development.
Yeah,
Can you give me a little more? What is practice? That's a packed term. I don't want to
it is
assume I know
practice.
what
Oh,
it
sure,
means.
sure. Because so much like in the earlier history of Mule Design, we were doing a lot more direct execution of the work. And especially since teams have gone in house, we still do that work. But a lot of what we're doing now is helping in house teams and helping organizations with their strategy so that they can do the work in the way that they might have previously hired an outside agency to do, because there are certain challenges that come with working in house.
Oh, excellent, excellent. So,
Consulting, the short way to put it is really it's consulting.
yeah, consulting, capacity
Yeah.
building. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're teaching people how to fish.
Yeah.
Um, Now I did my research. I went back into your past history and learned a little bit about you as a person. At least I think you that is online. And I like to hit people with sort of their deep history to begin with when they started thinking about this.
The lore.
Yeah, the lore. I love that. Um, you were a DJ at Dartmouth.
That is deep lore. That is
Yes,
really deep lore.
yes.
Yeah.
So I love this because I'm thinking about Erica as DJ, programming sort of a run, a morning, whatever window block you were in. And then I'm thinking about conversational design, something that you've published a lot about. And I think at one point you referred to it as the original interface or something along those lines. Is this where you start thinking about sort of designing a beginning and a middle and an end to an interaction? Because you walk in and you got to pick the songs to start, the middle songs, the end songs. How does this Erica connect to that Erica?
Well, I'll tell you in very like practical terms, uh, being a radio DJ in college absolutely prepared me for doing everything like giving remote talks and things like that because I
Yeah.
have no problem. Like some people find it very disconcerting to talk to the green dot and not see people, and
Yes.
I'm fine with that. Possibly related to that experience and possibly related to the fact that I'm just a talker. But probably a lot in alongside that, like at the same time, I was a radio DJ, which was honestly the one of the best parts of my college experience. I love it,
Hmm.
and I was on in the morning too. So I had a 6 to 9 a.m. Shift. So
That
I
drive to
had
work shift.
yeah. So by 9 a.m. I was fully caffeinated and had been like doing things since 5 a.m. and was
Yeah.
a complete monster. So I can also like wake up and just do things too. So I don't know if that's connected or if that's why I took that particular shift. But like my fondest memories are walking through the snow at like 5 a.m. to the radio station. It was really nice. But I was also a philosophy major,
Hmm.
and which turned out to be the most practical and useful major to go into design, digital design, systems design, because so much of what we were talking about in terms of uh, thinking about abstract systems and concepts and how they connect was like directly related to information architecture, interaction design, everything, right? Content strategy,
Yes.
all of that directly in philosophy. And I took one of my favorite classes was a philosophy of language course, where
Like
we
super
covered,
glue. Yes.
yeah. So many parts of it were directly relevant to the work of interactions among humans and thinking about those at a higher, more abstract level to say, well, what makes an interaction good or what makes it meet its goal? That sort of overarching question was embedded in a whole lot of my education.
So you brought up the philosophy of language, and as I said, I threw it out sort of as another pack term that I want to now unpack, and that's conversational design and how to make these systems more human, which is a very hard goal a lot of people are not getting these days. I don't think it's controversial for me to say that a lot of service interactions today are not human. Um,
Yeah.
so give us sort of the rundown or the concept that made you say conversational design is the topic that needs to be out in the world right now.
Well, I had been thinking about it for a very, very long time. Like my very first conference talk way back in 2007 was copy is interface because so much of like the early web design was really, it's like so much of what's wrong with design is people wishing they were graphic designers and not recognizing
Yeah,
that interactive digital system design is different. And a lot of what I was talking about in my early talk was like I worked with visual designers who they would, put lorem ipsum in there and they would like fight about how much like can we not have words and everybody was so drawn to icon design, can we just
right.
use icons with no labels? And my thought was like, why are we trying to avoid the most efficient and accessible way of communicating through the interface? So that's where my talk started,
I like it.
and which was really like the language and the labels. That's the most important part of the interface. If you have a button, it's not what shape the button is. It's like the words on the button and are what the button does,
What,
or it
yeah,
should be what the button does. And so the styling, the visual styling supports the meaning, which is often expressed, not always expressed in language. And that's
excellent.
part of the design.
Yeah, I also I like it. I like the concept. I will say at Ishmael Interactive we are very pro having the words. That's such a wild time to be alive and around designers. Um,
Yeah, because also like the words don't like the interface that can
mhm,
degrade, right? You can have an all text. You can go to all text, and if the words are there, in the right
right.
hierarchy, it will still work. But you can't have if you just have boxes, and in the old way, and still now, like right now, we've got since there are tools for like generating layouts. It's like that's not the design, though,
No.
friends. So it's like the same challenges, but people get distracted by different surface attributes. And that's why I'm interested in it, because
Yes.
you have to go deeper. And it's like just because something looks like a conversation, which is what we're really dealing with now, like, oh, I'm chatting with the computer, I'm talking to the computer, that's a conversational interaction. And I'm like, maybe not so much if
Are
it doesn't
you?
follow, yeah. Are you
Yeah.
really? If it doesn't follow the deeper principles of what makes a conversation work, that doesn't
Right.
mean that everything is literally like, I'm talking to the computer like on Star Trek. I love Star Trek. That is the most inefficient way to interact a lot of times, is to
Right.
actually with your voice talk to a computer. Like,
Right.
yeah.
Um, so you've been pushing at this topic for quite a while before everybody wanted to have their conversations with Chat GPT and have the algorithm generate the response. Um, you had to have some major learning curve, some major thing that brought you up to this point. I know you haven't been Sisyphus at the bottom of the hill all this time. You pushed it up a bit. You've gotten some progress. What was the big thing you had to figure out to really start to get ahead with these ideas?
The most important concept is what seems like it should be common sense is not. I think the biggest thing I learned is say the thing you think should be obvious. And I think that's true at like every level. There's a cognitive bias called the curse of knowledge,
Yes.
and that means that if you have any domain expertise whatsoever, you cannot communicate with people who are neophytes, who are new to the field, who are new to the topic. And one of the reasons so many things are hard to use is because people don't think about this and don't realize it. And so you really have to like sit with that when you're trying to communicate or design interfaces for or interact with people who are at all outside your area of expertise, which is basically like if you're a designer or a technologist, like everybody in the world trying to get something done.
Right.
And it took me a while to understand that because I'm like, what? I'm just going to say, but everybody knows this. Why should I say something that everybody knows? Because
But
there's
then they don't.
a fear of boring people, a fear of being
Right.
redundant. And then you say something that's like, well, this is really obvious. And people are like, oh my God, because a lot of what I do is I say things that are like first principles kind of things. And I think of that as some of the most important work I do because otherwise people think they're true, but they can't, from their position in an organization, can't say things. Like the emperor's new clothes is real,
Right.
right? We're
You're right.
all living through that at so many levels. Everybody knows that it's like, oh, that's wrong or that's bad, but they're like, but there's so much risk associated with speaking the simple truth in an organization. And that's why when designers are inside organizations, the work is much different. Because if you come in as a consultant, you walk in and you're like, why do you do it like that? That seems stupid, right? And they're like, oh, that's the work often is just pointing to something and everybody going like, oh yeah, you're right. But I can't
Right.
say that because I would get fired because I report to this hierarchy.
Yeah. Because somebody's got investment in how it's come about. That makes a lot of sense. Now, taking that value of saying first principles and not assuming people know the obvious or things like that into today's world, where it is very easy to think you know a lot because there's a lot of quick search tools out there. What is the challenge you are trying to figure out today? What is the current problem or conundrum? I know that you're a curious person by nature. What's got your curiosity?
What am I like most curious about is, I mean, really, because the fundamental challenge, and I would say the thing that I don't necessarily know but I'm very interested in, is looking at looking at the world. There's obviously a tremendous amount of work that needs to be done, and
Hmm.
the biggest question is, who's going to pay for the right work to be done?
Interesting.
because
Say a little
because
more.
funding, if you look at what gets, if you walk around and just sort of look at the world like as a designer to say,
Right.
why are things like that, how should they be, what would be a better way for things to be, I bet any person, and this goes back to the sort of common sense thing, people could just look around and say like, oh, this should be better. But the work that needs to be done the most, and the work that there is money to fund, and this is as a design consultant, I've seen this for my whole
Right.
career, those are very different with every kind of funding, right? With private sector funding,
Right.
with philanthropic funding, with government funding. The question is never like what work needs to be done, but often it's like, why do certain things attract funding?
Okay. I
And I
like it.
think that is the central question, is like, because right now, a lot of my friends and colleagues, their top of mind, if they've been in the field for a while, their top of mind question is, how do I make a living doing work that helps more than it harms? That's
Yeah.
everybody's question. When it seems like all the money is going towards harms.
Yeah. Can't argue with that. That's very true. It kind of speaks to the heart. Uh, Thank you, Erica. And a special thanks to our audience. Don't forget to find us on YouTube or our website, Ishmael Interactive, to like and subscribe. If you have any thoughts or any comments you'd like to leave on this topic, please feel free to chime in, and we will see you next time.